Hey 555ers, Andrew here. Today I'm going to be making a video for all of my new subscribers. I have a lot of enthusiastic new watch collectors who often roll into my messages on Instagram or shoot me an email just asking me what's a good first watch now that I'm actually interested in watches. And first of all, for those of you who are in this position, congratulations from graduating from your cell phone. The world of watches is an expansive, exciting, intriguing, sometimes misleading place. And so what I want to do in this video is just give 5 very straightforward first choices. These are all watches that I've owned for some period of time. I don't all have them currently in my collection, but I will tell you what happened with these watches if I didn't keep them. So that might be also something for a new watch collector to consider, is how are these various affordable pieces going to fit into my collection over time, or what can I expect will be the fate of these watches once I've gotten a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole. I also want to make clear that I'm not just going to recommend automatic or mechanical watches in this video. For the brand new beginner, which is who I'm envisioning could find this video useful, I think it can be very smart to start with a quartz watch. If you're a beginner, you're probably not looking to spend that much money, and so all of the mechanical examples I'll be giving you are affordable. In fact, all of the watches that I'll be recommending, if you look carefully, shop sales, or are willing to buy used, you can definitely find all of these watches under $100. All right, without any further ado, let's make some honorable mentions. And I know that there are some die-hard F91 guys here, so if you're wanting to get a super reliable, do-it-all, cheapy watch from your local Walmart, get a Casio F91. Another honorable mention that is not going to be in my top 5 list is going to be any G-Shock. And I'll explain why. A lot of G-Shock guys are sort of anti-traditional watches. I actually think that doesn't make a lot of sense, and I don't think it's actually true of all G-Shock guys either. But at any rate, if you buy a G-Shock thinking that it will be a path into a greater interest in mechanical watches, which is sort of what the core of the wristwatch hobby revolves around, you might find yourself getting into mechanical watches after you get a G-Shock. But you might just find yourself with a digital watch that is very different than what most hardcore watch hobbyists are talking about. So if you're truly curious about getting more into the watch hobby, then a G-Shock is an excellent watch, no doubt, but not the typical watch that I would recommend for a new enthusiast. All right, here we are at number 5. My number 5 recommendation, and yes, these are in order of growing recommendations. So out of the 5, ranked number 5 on my list goes to the Timex Expedition Scout, a watch that I've featured on a few videos on this channel. It is readily available. You can drive over to your local Target and get it. It is a truly versatile 40mm field watch. It is a watch that I would be comfortable recommending people to blind buy. That is to say, you could buy it off of Amazon, and the odds are is that if you don't like it, you could probably find someone that will like it. At 40mm, the case size is very versatile. That is to say, it'll fit on most men's wrists. I'd say 6.5 inches above to maybe 8 inches. You will find that it wears very comfortably because of the lightweight quartz movement. And as far as legibility goes, it's pretty easy for everyone to read. The 20mm canvas strap that comes on it is a nice style of strap. I don't think it's a very high quality strap. It's definitely itchy, but if you're patient enough to break it in, it will be comfortable to wear. The biggest negative for the Timex Expedition Scout, in my opinion, is the cheap case material. It's a fake electroplated mixed metal case. That is to say, it looks and is sort of brushed like a stainless steel case, but in fact, it is not a stainless steel case. And so over time, that case is not going to take on patina well. It also just has a very cheap mineral crystal, which means that over time, and you can see videos with long-term reports on this here on YouTube, the crystal will get scratched. It is possible for you to polish it, but the odds are is that it's not going to be worth the effort, and you'll just end up replacing the watch. The last negative about the Timex Expedition Scout is that the movement is really quite loud. Even though the Indiglo is very handy, you're getting along with that a quartz movement that clicks so loudly that when I've had this watch in my collection, I usually am putting it in my dresser. That being said, you can easily find this watch for about $30 at Target, and I actually just recently found one at my local Goodwill. It was just clearanced out of season and the battery had quit working for $10. Very cheap. So I would recommend that if you're curious about this one, you just go to your local store and check it out. But it is my number 5 on the list, and it is a watch that I see a lot of people wearing and enjoying, and I'm happy to recommend it. The next watch that I recommend, number 4 on my list, is actually another Timex, and it's the only other Timex that will be on this list, so be patient, guys. And that is a Timex from Todd Snyder. Now, the odds are is that you are getting into watches because you appreciate the style that is behind traditional wristwatches. And Todd Snyder has done an amazing job of harnessing some of the best design elements from Timex and building a fairly interesting exclusive collection utilizing Timex's traditional designs. Now, the one that's featured in this video is a very classic Timex style that has a very simple military dial layout. Notice that it's a little bit cleaner than the Scout. One thing that I like about Todd Snyder's Timexes is that there's quite a variety and that you can often get these watches on sale if you watch sales. So right now, at this present moment, there's a 15% off sale on Timex Todd Snyder's. Not affiliated at all, but it's just something that comes up pretty frequently. So if you don't like this specific Timex Todd Snyder that I'm showing you in this video, the odds are is you'll find something else that you'll like. And there are quite a few different styles. And so that style edge is what puts the Todd Snyder edition Timexes. Granted that they're quartz and are built to many of the same specifications as the Scout, it puts the Todd Snyder watches ahead of the Timex Scout. All right, we're getting into our top 3, and my number 3 pick for a great watch for new watch enthusiasts is the Orient Bambino. This Japanese-made dress watch is a great alternative to a lot of the fashion watches that I think new watch aficionados are interested in. And you're getting a quality in-house movement. Granted, it's not a pretty movement, but you'll never know because it's behind a closed case back. You're also getting a watch that has a lot of classic design touches that isn't going to look old over time. The dial has a variety of configurations, and that's what the different versions of the Bambino are primarily designated by, the different dial orientations. I've personally owned the 3rd version of the Orient Bambino, and I like that very clean modern look on the version 3 the best out of the bunch. The negative about the Orient Bambino is that a dress watch is definitely less versatile than some of the field watches that I've mentioned. You can sort of dress up a field watch with a nicer strap, and you can still sort of get by with a dressed up field watch, whereas a dress watch dressed down generally doesn't look as good. About the Orient Bambino, in my opinion, is that it is not hacking. The in-house Orient movement does have a decent power reserve, so it's not like you're going to have to wear the watch every day, but it is the type of watch that if you don't wear it for more than 3 days or so, you're going to need to wear the watch before you're able to set the time. And that's just kind of an annoying thing on these budget level automatics that you will have to get used to as a new watch collector. If you like a more military style, like some of the Timexes, and you're interested in the Orient brand, I have done a review on the Orient Flieger, which is a slightly more expensive watch with the same movement, but it's definitely built to a superior quality than the Timex watches that I previously mentioned. So that is an interesting alternative to the Bambino in this 3rd slot. All right, number 2 on my list is a watch that is really enjoyed by a lot of watch enthusiasts just because it's so accessible, and that is the Casio Duro. The Duro has a great provenance that goes back all the way to the mid-80s, and the current iteration of the Duro has a beautiful sunburst dial, applied indices, a nice aluminum insert on the bezel, and just overall is an excellent entry-level dive watch. One of the things that I like about this watch is that there's tons of reviews like on Amazon of people actually going and diving with this watch, which I think is really interesting because this watch can easily be found under $50. I think I got mine for $30 actually. So this watch does wear larger than the field watches that I've previously mentioned. And although it is a quartz watch, it is generally just built a little heavier. And so it is something that you have to be mindful of. That being said, I think that the classic sort of Submariner style of the Duro does dress up really nicely, and especially with the applied indices and radial sunburst style, it is a watch that is very versatile. That being said, this is clearly a worthy number 2 contender on my list because of the quality stainless steel case, the classic design, the wonderful, reliable movement, which lots of people have testified has held up very well to even actual diving, and the fact that this is an extremely affordable watch under $50. Well, before I tell you what my number 1 choice is, why don't you let me know in the comments below what your number 1 choice is for the entry-level watch for budding watch enthusiasts, for the new aficionado, for the new watch fan. Let me know what you would recommend as a first watch. And let me know what your criteria are too. I'd be interested in hearing what you would put first. For me, as you can tell, what's very important here is an affordable point of entry. I think that the initial enthusiast is not interested in spending a lot of money. The other thing that I've put a lot of emphasis on is classic style. Traditional styles that are not going to be regarded as unfitting in a variety of formal environments. And the third criteria that I've recommended is that these watches are all widely accessible. I haven't gotten to any niche brands in this video just because I think that generally it's very difficult to get a good sense from a niche brand if the watch is going to work for you when you're getting into collecting initially. And that was my experience. I blind bought some niche watches early in my watch collecting career over 10 years ago, and I found that the watches didn't fit my wrist well, or there are things that I didn't catch when I was looking at the watch online. It's better to initially collect affordable watches that you can hopefully get your hands on easily without a lot of hassle before you start buying watches that maybe are going to have features that you're not going to recognize initially as being a problem as a new collector. Maybe my number 1 choice is not surprising, and that is a Seiko 5. Yes, the venerable and most accessible label from Seiko is easily the type of watch I recommend most to new watch enthusiasts. And in particular, the watch that I recommend is the SNK 805. This is an incredible watch that you can find for about $50. Not only do you have traditional Flieger layout on the dial, which is very timeless and very readable. It's a very accessible watch to look at. Anyone who's interested in checking a traditional clock can easily learn how to check the time on there. Believe it or not, I've met people who don't know how to read traditional clocks, and this is a very easy way to maybe teach a child how to read a clock, that kind of thing. This is also a good watch to give to a younger person because the size is a bit on the smaller side. This is 36 millimeters with 18 millimeter lugs. I find this watch size to be timeless, and I find that the watch wears very well on my 7¼ inch wrists. Now, some of the quirks or things that you want to think about when you're looking at this Seiko 5. First of all, this has a very tiny crown. It does have a nail nick on the back so that you can adjust the crown pretty easily, but this little crown is something you're going to be using a lot because this watch comes with the 7S26 movement, which is a venerable movement from Seiko, but is venerable in the same way that your grandma's laundry machine is venerable. It's just a very simple movement. There's no polish to it at all. It's unadorned. It's not decorated at all, but it is very reliable. And importantly, it does not hack or hand wind, which means that when the power reserve runs out, if you haven't been wearing the watch, you're going to have to wear the watch again or give the watch a shake before you're able to set the time. If you don't like the size of the SNK 809, then check out some of the watches in the SNZ series, which are coming in at a above 40 millimeter size in a similar field watch style. Now, I mentioned that I've owned all of these watches and that I would let you know what happened to these watches. So let's just go through the list. The Timex Expedition Scout. I've owned probably 5 of these watches, and I just keep giving them away. I find good deals on them and then I share them with friends. And so that's a nice fate for a watch that doesn't have a high investment threshold. To be able to get a watch that you like, and then when you're ready to move on, you can give it to someone else who's going to be able to keep using it. The most recent one that I got, like I mentioned, I got at Goodwill for about 10 bucks, and it just needs a battery. It's so great. I do have a Timex Todd Snyder in my collection that I featured in a number of videos, the Redwick edition one that I've previously mentioned in this video. I definitely enjoy that watch. I consider it sort of a beater in my collection, and yet it stands on its own in comparison to some of the other field watches that I have in terms of the typesetting and some of the details, for example, in the high quality Red Wing watch strap. The Orient Bambino was a watch that I did not have in my collection for very long, and for reasons that I mentioned when I was discussing some of the negatives. First of all, at the time that I bought the watch, the attire at my work was not very formal. And so having a dress watch was just something that wasn't something that I had very many occasions for. Surprisingly, in my current work, I would probably be wearing that watch a lot more often if it was in my collection. The other thing about the Bambino was just the lug width at 21 millimeters. I just found I was not very excited to swap out straps on that watch. And so I probably only had the watch for a couple months at the most. And then I was able to sell it on a watch forum for almost exactly what I paid for it, because I bought it used as well. So that worked out pretty well. And the Flieger, that watch, I honestly don't remember what I did with that. I think I sold it to fund a nicer field watch purchase. Now the Casio Duro stayed in my collection for quite a while. I think it was about a summer as a beater watch, and then I ended up selling it as a package actually to an everyday carry group with some other gear. And I didn't feel bad about that at all. I think I sold it with some other entry-level EDC gear for 100 bucks, and I walked away feeling like I got my enjoyment out of that watch and I was ready for some nicer dive watches. And last but not least, I want to talk about what happened to my Seiko 5 SNK 809. Now this was a watch that when I got it, I knew that I was going to give it to someone that would really be able to enjoy it and would probably wear it a lot. And believe it or not, I actually ended up giving it to my dad. I put a new higher quality strap on it. It's from another Seiko watch, but it was a full grain leather strap, just a nicer quality strap. And I gave it to him, I think, for a birthday present, which he really was excited about. He's not a watch guy at all, but all he had ever worn his whole life were the cheapest Timexes that you could get from your local Walmart or Target. And so for me, it was exciting to give him something a little bit nicer, and I'm really happy to say that he's regularly wearing it and seems to enjoy the watch. He's definitely the right candidate for someone to receive a watch like that. It's also held up really well over the couple years that he has worn the watch, and so that's another reason why I like it. The Hardlex crystal on the Seiko 5s are definitely better than the mineral crystals on the Timexes, and the automatic movement really isn't giving him a lot of trouble. People complain about the accuracy on those entry-level Seiko 5s. In my opinion, watch accuracy isn't the most critical thing for most watch enthusiasts. You're not going to notice if your watch is losing or gaining a few seconds a day. And at least with this Seiko 5, the timekeeping standards are normal enough that my dad's never had any problems with it. Alright, so there's my list of 5 great watches for new watch enthusiasts. If you're a new watch enthusiast, I hope you find this list helpful. If you think that it's a good start or a good reference point, please do leave me a thumbs up down in the comments. If you're new to the channel, if you've discovered this video through a search, I'd really appreciate it if you consider becoming a subscriber. On 555 Gear, we cover a lot of different gear topics, and I think that I'm going to be able to continue to bring you interesting content that will help you enrich and improve your gear ownership experience. So please do hit that subscribe button if you're new here.